Hey everybody, my name's Steven. I'm a first year PA student, and today I'm going to be talking about your CASPA application. So, to start things off right off the bat, this is another one of those really stressful things when you're applying to PA school because the CASPA application, while pretty simple in the format that it has, and it's kind of nice because once you fill one out, you can pretty much submit it to multiple schools without doing too much extra secondary application type stuff. It's still really long and a little bit stressful, and it kind of feels like they're reaching back into everything you've ever done and trying to remember it all and find documents. But before we talk about all that stuff, let's talk about the basics when you're filling it out and kind of a few things that you need to have in check and keep in mind and be organized about to make it really a streamlined situation and make it go pretty simple. So, let's start with the biggest thing, which is doing your research before you actually submit your application and even before you start writing your CASPA and getting into your CASPA. So, what I mean by that is know what programs you kind of want to apply to. Um, know how many hours they require, know the minimum GPAs, the minimum GRE scores, know when their deadlines are, when they open up, if they have an early submission preference. I know my school that I went to had a deadline that was like September 1st, September 31st, but they had like an August 1st like sub deadline where you got better preference if you were before that one. So that's big. So know that kind of stuff. Get started on your letters of rec before it even opens. So I think this year CASPA opens April 29th. Get started if you have some people who you know, like, man, this is a mentor to me. This is someone that I want to write me a good rec letter. Get started on that now. Get started on it yesterday. Talk to them about it. Be like, hey, you're awesome. I feel like you know me really well. We have a good relationship. I would really, really be honored and appreciate it if you would start working on my PA school recommendation letter. My letters of rec definitely, I believe, were what got me into PA school. I didn't have the best hours portfolio. I didn't have as many shadowing hours as everybody else. I didn't necessarily have the most in-depth experience, but the recommendation letters that I got, all the people who interviewed me said that they were awesome and that they really spoke well about me and that they could tell that the people who wrote them spent a lot of quality time on them. So that's big. Application deadlines, your rec letters, getting started on them early, and then doing the research about the specific programs you want to apply to. Quick little side, everyone's going to apply to, or going to give you different advice on how many programs to apply to and like different things about your CASPA application. I personally only applied to two programs, and the reason I only applied to two programs is because there was one in my state that was a really good school, like top 25 program, and it was a state school, so it was even a little cheaper than most of the programs in my state, and it was kind of my like gold standard, like that's where I want to go. And then there was also the school that was at home, like near where I lived growing up, and I could live at home and save some money that way. It wasn't as good of a program, but I toured it, and I thought it was somewhere I would still love to be if I was given the opportunity. So I applied to those two programs because personally, I had already been working for a year at the hospital, and as a caregiver, I liked my jobs. I liked where I was living. I had good friends in my college town that I was living at. Um, so in my mind, it was like, well, if I don't get in, I'll take one more year. I'll make some money. I'll have, good times on the weekends in my little college town with my friends. And then I'll apply again, and I'll be that much better of an applicant. But some people will tell you, man, like apply to 40 schools, get in. It just depends on if you like your job and if you can wait. Like it kind of depends on a lot of other stuff too, obviously finances and loan money. But for me, it was a little more simple. But anyway, when it comes to the CASPA, do that research beforehand. So the next big thing is that you really want to take your time. So I have a little bit of a different opinion than most, I would say, online about submitting your CASPA. Most people that I've met and that I've read about or I've heard talk about this subject will say, like, get your application. Like, if it opens the 29th, get it in the 29th. Um, I don't personally agree with that. I think that you should take your time. I didn't get mine in until like the day before that primary deadline I told you about. So my school had a early preference deadline on August 1st, and I got mine in July, whatever it is, 30th, 31st. Um, and I got in, and I got in 2 days after my interview, and I got my interview pretty early to a really good school. So that's obviously one story. But what I will say is that someone that I spoke to when I was doing my application process was in charge of admissions for an entire grad program at the school that I go to, and he said that even though most schools will say like if you get in earlier you'll have preference, unless you are like late or like last minute and they've already filled a couple spots or something, it's really not going to matter. They can't necessarily give a lot of preference to someone just because they were earlier. And most schools usually won't fill like all their spots right away. They'll usually wait a little bit because life's busy and they know that some of the best candidates are going to come later and they don't want to have so many spots filled up to where if a stud candidate like yourself comes applying, a few days before the application deadline, they're like, oh shoot, we don't have room for them. They're not going to do that. They're smarter than that. Take your time. Don't get too stressed out about submitting it super duper early. With that being said, don't submit it like right before or like late. You don't want to be stressed about it. You want to give yourself a couple good weeks, a month and a half to work really hard on that application. I know I say a month and a half. It took me whatever, April to July, so whatever that is, 3 months to do mine. So, don't get too stressed. Don't be trying to submit at the last minute, but don't work on it early and like figure out, like don't do it the day of. It's not gonna make that big of a difference, I promise. Lastly, so a big thing that's really important is spend some time on your personal statement. So I told you about the rec letters. Rec letters are super important. Get some people who really know you and really love you and you've worked with a lot to write them for you and to get started on them early. But your personal statement, man, have everybody you know check it over. Like people who know you well, people who are good writers, people who are going to be honest with you, because your personal statement is your voice. Like that's the big thing. There's going to be secondary applications for most schools where you can maybe write a little bit of an essay here and there. But man, that personal statement is where you tell the school or you show the school like who you are as a person, not just as a PA student. So that's pretty much my tips. I'm gonna look up a few articles that I like that I was using last year when I was going through the same process, and I'm gonna post them down below in the comments. If you like this information, please feel free to subscribe and watch my other videos. And then if you have any questions, please comment. I will respond to them super quickly. I'm currently in PA school, enjoying it, loving it, and I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and comments. So bye now. Thanks for watching.